Welcome back, everyone. This is the second dev log or dev diary for formerly Cryptic. Now, CULTIC is the new official title that I've settled on. There was definitely never any kind of subtitle on there. It's always just been CULTIC. But yeah, I've got a lot of fun new stuff that I've gotten done in the last couple of weeks to show you. So I guess let's go ahead and get started. So the weapon roster is pretty much finished now. We've got the Sten, which I showed off a bit in the last video, but I also finished things off here with the China Lake grenade launcher. It has a 4-shot internal magazine, and if you empty it, it has its own distinct empty reload. So you have to load a shell first, and then you can continue with the reload. Otherwise, you just load one shell at a time. And this reload is, pretty much already implemented for the lever action, but I wanted to go ahead and add that extra penalty, so to speak, if you completely empty the magazine out. And I went ahead and extended this to the Sten as well. So if you run the Sten completely dry, there is this extra longer animation where you do have to rack the bolt to get the first round in the chamber, and that's just a little bit of flavor in there for if you reloading before you completely drain the weapon to save yourself a little bit of time. So one of the largest changes since the last devlog was adding in the offhanded item slot. The more I develop the game, I realized that it's going to have a lot of dark areas in it, and I really enjoyed the look that the lighter has in game. But of course, at the time, you could only get the lighter out if you had the TNT out. So I added an offhanded item slot so you could draw, an extra item alongside your gun. And this does limit the player in some ways. Like the one-handed items mostly function the same. You have to put the lighter away to reload, but that happens automatically, and the lighter automatically redraws or whatever offhanded item you have. Like the lever action now has a flip cocking animation instead of the regular animation for firing. And then reloading is the same. It automatically stows the offhanded item. But then two-handed items, you actually can't fire with the lighter out or with your offhanded item out. If you try to fire, it automatically stows it, so you can get to shooting pretty quickly. So that's going to be a limitation, and that'll enable me to put the player in situations where, it's kind of darker and spookier to get around, and they're limited to their one-handed items, if they really want to be able to see better. And having that offhanded item slot also allows me to let the player pick small objects up, like maybe throwing objects in the environment around, or maybe being able to pick up this lantern and throw it at an enemy for a fire area of effect type thing. So that's kind of something I just started working on, but it did involve completely changing up the way the weapons work and adding more animations for the offhanded weapons and lowering weapons when you get the lighter out. And it also involved a big completely redoing the TNT sprites, because before the lighter was just a part of those, so I had to split all of those up. But pretty big change, took almost a whole day to implement, but definitely worth it, and I think that's going to add a lot of exciting elements to the gameplay moving forward. Let's see, next up, I've made a couple of changes to the player's movement. You might have noticed in previous videos the player does move around a little bit slowly, so I did finally add a run key. But I also added a little player dodge function, which isn't currently limited by a cooldown or stamina or anything, but I might have to do that in the future. But I'm going to play around with a little bit and see kind of what the balancing winds up looking like. But the main purpose of this was that the projectile enemies in the game aren't hit scan. They do fire projectiles with travel time. So the player is able to dodge out of the way of those. So for the most part, just keeping moving during combat is a good way to avoid bullet damage. And I can show that off. I'm probably going to get shot a whole bunch because I haven't gotten too good at this dodging yet. But yeah, you can pretty much dodge projectiles like that. So enemies are pretty accurate now. Back when I first had this set up, the enemies were actually hit scan, and so I gave them a little bit of projectile variance or inaccuracy so that they wouldn't hit you with every single shot. But now enemies are pretty dang accurate, so you just have to either get behind cover or dodge their shots entirely. And the dodging also, if you pair it with jumping, you can get moving around pretty fast, so I suspect folks who are into speedrunning will get a kick out of that and enjoy the mobility options that adds into the game. One of the fun updates you might have seen if you've been following the Twitter was that the player can now kick. If you're familiar with the old Mighty Boot and Duke Nukem 3D, this will probably be right up your alley. But kicking also lets you beat doors down, which is always fun. And kicking is pretty much guaranteed to stun lock most weaker enemies as well. So you can use it to get out of a bind if you are stuck and out of ammo and just need to get yourself out of a hairy situation. Another thing that I got added recently was adding doors, which are, pretty important in games, but I tried to make the door script something really flexible that you can just kind of slap on any object in the game and turn it into a door. And so like you can establish a curve for the door's opening and closing animation, and then a separate curve for if the door is forced to open. So that basically you can see here, like this is a really smooth open up and then it slows down as it approaches being fully open. The close curve, it starts out slow, but then it kind of accelerates into a slam, and the forced curve, it kind of springs open, bounces back a little bit. And so that was just a really easy way to, depending on if it's like a small door or a huge gate or a sliding door, kind of determine how that's going to look opening up. There's a bunch, you specify all of the sound effects that you're going to need it to have: open, close, latch, locked, unlocked, getting forced open. There's quick little checkboxes for, is the door locked? Is the door stuck? If it is locked, there's a message that displays. There's a box for whether the door slides open, or whether, if that's unchecked, then it's a rotating door. If it is locked, what integer ID of key would cause it to, actually be unlocked? How long does it take to open? And then offsets for the rotation. So basically there's a whole lot of different variables here, so you can kind of have all kinds of different doors based off of one base class. So kind of illustrating all of that in action, here's just a basic door open, door close, door getting forced open, and that's a rotating door. In here there's like a sliding door. Same class, it's just set up to slide instead of rotate, and it can't be forced open, so you won't be able to blast it open. And then I did something kind of similar to the door with all of my light sources in the game. So I'll put this lighter away. You can see these lights are kind of pulsing a little bit here. The light over here and this jail cell is kind of like doing a very smooth pulse on and off, whereas these ones are more kind of flickering. And if you look at those, we'll go here and pull this up. We kind of did something very similar. Let me get the actual inspector window for this pulled up. Okay, so the light has its own pulse script on it. You can also specify a curve for it. You can specify whether the intensity of the light is random or not. And so, the lights in the cells that are pulsing smoothly, those are using a curve that they're following back and forth. If the intensity is set to random, then it's going to just do the flickering, and you can specify how long it takes that curve to complete. You can specify how quickly a random interval change happens, how quickly it changes to the newly determined intensity. So this just lets me kind of slap this script on any light object and kind of create, atmospheric spooky lights and malfunctioning equipment and stuff like that, and was just going to be a really easy way to customize lights on the fly. I finally got all of the voxel models for item and weapon pickups into the game. I kind of did these twice, because the first time I modeled them and did all of the textures by hand, I didn't really like the way they looked. They weren't really fitting with the rest of the game's kind of art style, so I went back and redid them all, and I think they turned out a lot better the second time around. So pretty much everything, all the guns have their own pickups, and then every gun has a small and large ammo pickup as well. You couldn't see the voxel models particularly well in that dark scene, so I wanted to go ahead and pull them up here just in the voxel editor if you wanted to get a better look at those. But yeah, so pretty much everything's got like a weapon model and then a small and large ammo model as well. I think that's pretty much it for this dev log. That's most of the major stuff that I've gotten done in the last couple weeks. So, hoping to keep everything on track with the rapid progress I've been making. Obviously appreciate everybody who's been interacting with the game on Twitter and YouTube and everywhere else. I'm really excited to keep moving on this project, and hoping to get something playable to everybody as soon as I possibly can. But until then, take care.